Good morning, America, and good morning to all the wonderful and beautiful people out there in the world. This is Maya's Java Chat, and and I know that name does not flow off the tongue. I have trouble saying it myself. Well, today, yesterday, I posted a very lengthy video, and parts of it I'm ashamed of even saying in it. But you know what? I did what I did. I said what I said, and I'm not going to retract it because those are the feelings I have. But in part of my video that I posted, that is just a little bit over an hour in length, I said that I was going to do another video about me and my burns and what happened and survival. So to get off to a good start, I got my beautiful cup of Folgers coffee. I love it. I enjoy it. And I hope you are enjoying your cup of Folgers coffee each and every morning. Mm. Oh, I gotta get another one. Oh, I am enjoying my coffee. Well, I I want to tell you, I am a senior citizen. Yay. No, not a lot of people that grow old are happy. I'm not really happy with all the aches and pains that come with aging. But my focus today is burn survivors and burn injuries. I was a child when I was in a house explosion, and I went through a lot of pain. I lost my mother, I lost my younger sibling, and I had an older sibling that kind of lost his mind after witnessing everything that had happened. He was not burned as severe as I was. I was burned 70+% of my body. And to this date, I still need surgeries. But after the explosion, the neighbors next to our home, they, the young couple, the man came out and he grabbed me as I broke out the window and climbed out and fell to the ground, and I was still on fire. And I remember to this day, this will never go away. This is something that is embedded in my brain, in my memory. I will never forget it. I am reliving this experience for you to understand what it's like to be a burn survivor and what burn people go through. He saw me fall out the window and he came over and he took off his shirt and he put the flames out on me and he picked my body up and carried me to his car. The passenger side in the front seat was his wife, and in the back seat on the behind the passenger uh, was my brother. He sat me behind the driver's seat behind him, and he got in the car. And I balanced myself. I did not lean up against anything. I was still, even though everything that was happening, I still knew to balance. And I turned and I looked at my brother and I saw his face of horror. I looked in the front of our home, and there was my mother and my younger sibling on the ground, blackened, and people standing around. The paramedics nor the police were there yet. This man and his wife, they drove us to the hospital. My brother, whom I love, had to sit there and watch the flesh drip off my body. My body was still burning from the heat, from the flames that I walked and had to get out from. I could not breathe. It takes your oxygen away. I had a limited amount of time to get out. And I climbed on top of a washer and dryer and kept falling off to get out that window. But I did it. You can scream in a fire. No one can hear you but you. As we were going to the hospital in that vehicle, my body was so hot that I would ask him to roll the windows down. Then I became cold. Can you roll them up? I was that alert of everything around me. And then I started noticing my body, my arms that were raised up because I couldn't lay them down. My muscles and the flesh were tightening up from the cold. It hurt. Just the wind on my body hurt. I felt pain. I just didn't know why. I couldn't understand what exactly was going on, even though I knew something horrible had just happened. The lady in the front seat was puking from the smell of my burnt flesh. The gentleman that picked me up was puking. My brother was puking. I couldn't. My senses were gone. I had no ability to smell, which is weird. I could hear and I could see, but I had no taste in my mouth any longer. I couldn't smell. I couldn't even smell my flesh that was burning, that was making everybody around me throw up. I couldn't smell it. But I could see everything that was happening around me with all three of them throwing up. And my brother in the car with me was so fortunate that he was not severely burned. The blast threw him out of the room. I, on the other hand, when the explosion took place, I hit the ceiling and then the floor. I had no idea how long I was in that for because when I came to, I blinked once, one time, together my sense of the surroundings. I saw the washer and dryer side by side by the window. And that was my way out. The gentleman that picked me up, he and his wife that took us to the hospital in their car. I learned they disposed of their car. They could not get the odor out. My flesh fell off of me into their vehicle. I learned that many years later when I was fortunate enough to meet them, my angels. When they got me to the ER, he pulled up to the ER and his wife jumped out and started screaming for help. And he opened the back door and grabbed me up. And he ran inside with me. And they came out with a gurney. And they set me down on that gurney. And they gently laid me down. So many people were around me. Masks, masked faces. So what I saw, and they shaved my head, and they peeled off the clothes, the remnants of the clothes and shoes that were stuck to my feet. And the clothes that burned to my body, they tried little by little to get it off of me. So I kept looking around everywhere. There were so many people I cannot remember. But they did what they did. They put IVs in my head. And then I hear all this noise, rattling noise, crashing noises in a hospital. And they had lined this big tub, a metal tub, plastic, and filled it with ice. They laid plastic over the ice, and then they laid white sheets on them. And then they laid me in it. And then they put a cradle over my body. And then they put plastic over it. No, they put the cloth, the sheet over that. And then they put plastic over the sheet that was laying over the cradle. And they filled more ice in it to cover the top of me to help bring the temperature down on my body. As I noticed my arms were bubbling. and beginning to swell. I was asking him what happened. I wanted my mom. I wanted the kiss on my forehead that I love you and everything will be all right. That's what I need. Instead, these people came in and they rolled me out down a long corridor. All I could see is lights above me going down this corridor to the helicopter. And I was crying. I was afraid, don't put me in there, I'll fall out. And the man standing there, he said, I will make sure you don't fall out, but we need to do this. He had his hand there on that big metal tub, holding. He made sure I saw that I was not going to fall out of the helicopter. And when we got to the children's hospital, they they took me in, and everything they did at the ER, they reversed. They took off the ice, the plastic, the sheet, the cradle, and they gently lifted me up. And that is when it happened. Every nerve in my body was so tender, it hurt. Everyone. But there were so many machines around me, so many people, masked faces. They put me in another bed, an air mattress that had tiny little holes in it that kept me above the mattress. They started to do what's known as the breeding, removing parts of burn skin off my body that was left behind from the ER. The ER hospital could have only done so much. They are not a burn unit. And I laid there and I was crying. Please don't hurt. I want my mom. I need her to help me and make it all better. That's what I need. And you know, I started thinking, I left the house. That was her and my younger brother. She wasn't gonna hold me. She wasn't going to kiss me on the forehead every morning on the way to school, then every night before going to sleep. She was gone. When she was gone, I laid there and they were using their code words as they were standing over me in their masked faces. I could see above me in the reflection of them cutting into my trachea and putting a tube in so I could breathe. I had inhaled so much soot and smoke that they even went into my sides to put tubes in. And and slowly, I would sleep. I don't know how long I was asleep. They thought I was asleep, and I learned a lot. See, when you're in a coma, it's to help your brain rest and not overwork itself. And all the machines around me was keeping me alive, beating my heart, helping me breathe, and giving my brain a rest. And you know, when your loved ones are in comas, they say, talk to them, they can hear you. Yes, they can. But what they didn't know is that you can also feel. Oh, I could hear the clinking noises of the carts coming to my room. I knew it was clockwork. I knew everything that was happening. I felt everything. I felt that pain. And I was screaming, let me die. Just let me die. And the people above me were having conversations as if they didn't even hear me because they didn't. I was in a coma, talking. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream for help. I couldn't do anything. All the machines were doing it for me. And I came to the conclusion the whole point of putting me in that coma is so that it would save the workers from the horror of my screams that I was screaming while being in the coma. That's the only conclusion I could come up with. Putting me in that coma was to rest my brain, not to shut down the nerves throughout my body. I felt everything. And as the nerves began to heal and the grafts were taken, and the grafts were dying. These are skin grafts, were just parts of my body that were not burned. They were reusing the skin to try and heal me. I even had an older sibling that donated a 2.5 by 2.5 piece of skin off his leg. Oh no, I won't do that again. That's too painful. That's my own brother. He would do it again. None of my other siblings would do it either. They saw the pain he endured. They said, hell no. I thank him for that, for trying. Pig skin is the closest to human, and they used it as a substitute to help heal my body. I know I wasn't the only one there. There were plenty of others that were on the burn unit. All I had was a few visits from a few family members. And that was through a window and a voice box that they could speak through. Germs and bacteria was my enemy. That's why people were not allowed in. So as many months went by and I began to heal some, I was transported to another hospital. And that is where I was in the ICCU for about 6 months. I was in some of the strangest beds. They had me wrapped up in bandages. and you could hear them with the scissors just snip, 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 just cutting them away and then peeling them off of your skin. And as soon as air hit, oh, you could feel it. It hurt. It hurt, and sometimes the grafts would stick to the bandages, and then they'd have to regraft. Sometimes the grafts wouldn't take, and they would have to regraft. And then they would have to wait weeks later, months later for the good skin to heal so they can reuse your skin. I lost my ears, I lost my nose, I lost my mouth, I lost my hands, most of them. I had the worst part of being a burn survivor is facial and neck area, facial, neck, and chest. Because the scar bands, they contract, they pull together, they pull your head down where you don't have full range of motion, which creates other problems in your neck. It's uncomfortable. Scar bands tighten on you where you feel at times you're choking. And you stretch your neck up and down and move it around to try to loosen it up. And sometimes they'll do steroid injections into the scar bands to try to break them up. Or go back to surgery and cut them out and regraft. Now, they did a lot of things to me, for me, to help me while hurting me. When they brought me out of the coma, I didn't know if they could hear me or not. This lady came in with a mask on, a cap over her head, bodysuit, and said, "Good morning, Maya. How are you doing?" And I looked at her. I didn't know what to say. And she said to me, she said, "Maya, can you hear me?" And I laid there. "Maya, can you hear me?" And I said, "Can you hear me?" She goes, "Yes, I can hear you." For the longest time, that was the first time I actually had somebody hear me. It was strange. I started talking to her about the bed I was in. "Why am I in this weird thing? What are you doing to me?" And she says, "Well, I'm here to help you. I have to rotate the bed to keep your blood circulating. And it's this big round machinery frame. It had this handle thing on it. And I had a mattress underneath me, and I had one on my backside. I was sandwiched, and they would rotate that bed at different degrees for the blood to circulate and for my body to be able to heal. It was one of the strangest contraptions. I thought it was torture. It was scary, especially when you're almost hanging upside down as a kid. She tried to explain it to me. All I knew was pain. That was my life now. Pain. Physical, mental. They gave me a drug that is not used as much as it used to be. Before they changed my dressings, which they did, every 2 hours and about 15 to 20 minutes. They did that every day. And how did I know? I had to focus on a clock in the room. I could hear the clink, 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 clanking noise of the cart with the tools and medical supplies. I knew because when I looked at my arms and hands that were bandaged, I knew it was time again for them to cut off the bandages because I could see stuff soaking through the bandages. They would rinse me off with saline solutions. They would rub me down with red iodine. But there was one thing they gave me, the Stimrol, a very potent drug. And that drug messed with my mind so much that I was seeing things that weren't there. I must say, I don't know the extent of how long they gave me those drugs. But I saw my arms and my legs grow long and fall off my head. I saw bugs and snakes and other things, the walls melting. I saw other things that just weren't there. And when they changed those dressings, they gave me a dose every single time. And then I learned later they were feeding it to me too through the IV, an IV drip. They were giving me that drug to the point where I didn't know where the hell I was. I was trying to fight a drug that was so powerful against a child's mind. At the age of 11, my childhood ended. I became an adult. I had no mother. I had no home. All I had then was pain, drugs, and years of surgeries. I was locked in a burn unit. They had locked doors because they knew when I learned to walk, the first thing I was going to do was run. And they were right. But that took a long time to come. I had to learn to walk. I had to learn to use my hands again. I had to learn to feed myself, to write. I had to fight for the right to take a typing class in school when I went back to school. And then I was told I was not in, I shouldn't be in school because I was a distraction to the other students. I'd be better staying off at home. When my sister took me in, they created my upper lip. They built me a nose. It's not the perfect nose. I know it. But they had to take skin from my forehead to build my nose. They put a ex- tissue expander under my forehead for up to 6 months. So, and then after that, then they had to twist it around and bring it down over the area where my nose was just gone in order to create a nose for me. And they did the same thing with my upper lip. They literally brought skin from my scalp, both sides, and put it down there. And they had to keep it a good blood supply for 6 to 8 weeks, both on the nose and both on the upper lip. These are the things a burn survivor has to go through in a lot of cases. Severely burned people, not all, but severely burned people. And today, technology has changed. Science has changed. But when I was a child, you were lucky if the graph took. And science was evolving when it came to taking care of burned people. Now, so many things transpired during the course of me being released from the hospital. I had to learn to walk again. And when it came to my hands were bundled up all the time. And I had these wires, 5 wires sticking out of them, both of them. I had all my fingers, so I thought. They put wires in the bones of my hand to position them, to help them from not growing together. And I remember the day that they put me in a chair. It was like a teenager or a teen, preteen high chair, and they begin to strap me into it. It's like something you would see in a sci-fi movie of someone on a spaceship. The room was just all white. There was just one chair in there and a tray of all these weird looking tools. And a staff held one of my hands up. And the doctor began to unwrap it. And I kept asking, why are you doing this? What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Because this is the first time it happened. They never done this before. They kept unwrapping it. And they created an illusion that I had my hand with those 5 metal wires and 5 little corks on the end of them. They did that. They didn't want to tell you what was really under the bandage. I remember it like it was yesterday. And she held my arm. And he kept unraveling it. And what I saw, I screamed, "What did you do to my hand? Where are my fingers? What happened?" And while I was focused on that, another staff member grabbed my other arm and held it up, and another physician was already in the room, and I had no clue they were even there. And they were doing the other. God, let me die. Let me die. Let me fucking die. That's what I want. I cried. I wanted. Why are you keeping me alive? Look at my hands. And they pulled those wires out with no pain meds. Nothing. They just ignored everything I was saying. And I had no fingers. What am I going to do with life? I didn't even know what I looked like. I never thought, why did they have mirrors in our rooms? They never told us what we look like. My hands were the first things I saw that I knew something serious was wrong. That I knew my life was going to be hell for a very long time. I knew. My life was never going to be the same. And I hated them. I hated the staff. I hated the doctors. I hated life. I hated my mom for leaving me. I hated what happened. So I stopped eating. That was my weapon to allow myself to die. So they put a tube up my nose and they force fed me. And they said it will stay there until I start to eat. I had no say. I knew life was going to be hard from that point on. They sent in a couple of therapists, and I told them I'm exercising my right. I don't have to speak to you. So get the fuck out. That's right. I was still a kid. I was using the F bomb. I don't want to talk to them. They couldn't fix me. They can't make me whole. They can't give me back my hands and fingers. They can't give me back my face, my nose, my ears. They couldn't do any of that for me. I didn't need to talk to them. I just had to learn to come to sense with what happened to me. I had to own it. I had to understand it. I had to accept the fact that I am not going to be like everybody else with 5 fingers, a smooth face, where I'm able to grab a glass of water with one hand. I don't have that luxury any longer. People don't realize what they take for granted. But what I did have to endure was when I did leave that hospital after I learned to walk. I had to learn to do everything all over again. I had been bedridden for so long I could no longer walk. I couldn't use my arms or my hands. But when I came to accepting what had happened to me, I had to understand that I had to. And how did that happen? I met a little girl in a room, and the mother had come into my room and asked me if I would talk to her daughter. And at that time, I was still in a wheelchair. And I went to that room in a wheelchair. They pushed me in there. And this young black girl that had a spot on her face that was burned, some spots on her arms, her hands. She still had her fingers. Her brother wasn't so lucky. He died. They brought in 2 trays of food, one for her and one for me. And I'm still a child, and they needed my help. That made me feel good. I sat there and I talked to her a little bit. She wouldn't say anything. And when they brought the food in, she just turned her head away. And I said to her, Tanya, can you help me eat? I can't feed myself. I want to get out of here. I'm hungry. If I eat my food, I get out of here sooner. We're both stuck in here. That's right. It took me a good 15 minutes to convince her to feed me. And I told her, I said, if we get better, we eat our food, they're going to let us out soon. We heal, we get better, we go home. And she started to eat. And she fed me. It made me feel good, knowing I was helping her, but she was helping me. We were helping one another to beat the hospital. We did what we had to do. And once I finally was given a date to go home, then things changed. What I thought would be freedom became another hell. And I will continue this in my next video. Please click like, subscribe, and share. And if you see a burn survivor out there, they don't need to be made fun of. They need to be understood. You need to understand what they went through. Because it's not an easy life for any of us. God bless you all.